Okay, so let me start with a little history. SkillQ has been around since 2006. For the first 5 years of SkillQ's life, most of our video was either interviews at client sites or green screen video produced in our office using a temporary setup. Later, we created a small studio in a conference room. It worked reasonably well, but had a few key problems. The most significant problem was size. We had room for one talent and a couple of crew, but when combined with the lights, tripods, stands, and other gear, more than 3 people made the room feel claustrophobic. The second big problem was sound. I'm not talking about audio quality, I'm talking about sound intrusion. The room was adjacent to another business that just happened to be a metal fabricator. Not a great neighbor when you produce video. We would coordinate with the other business to record when they were not banging or cutting with a plasma torch. This made scheduling a pain and created an ongoing inconvenience for us and the other business. What little space we had was further hampered by cables. It was difficult and sometimes dangerous to walk around the room because cables were run across the floor. The room was not designed for production, so we had numerous power and video cables crisscrossing the floor space. We tried to be neat, but it was a pain to move around a mostly dark room with so many cables on the floor. The final problem was temperature. We're in Florida, and big surprise, it's hot in the summer, really hot. And the AC in our studio was okay, but noisy. The noise made it necessary to turn off the AC when shooting to avoid background hiss in our recordings. Let me tell you, in a closed room with 3 or more people, plus heat generating equipment, it would get uncomfortable quick. We would be forced to take frequent AC breaks to turn on the AC and bring the temperature back down to a reasonable range. The breaks would reduce our efficiency and breaks the flow of the talent. Did I mention that talent and employees must still be paid when waiting for the temperature to drop? Without the breaks, the talent and crew would get pretty cranky and a little sweaty, which I will warn you does not improve production quality. 2 years ago, we moved to a new location and expanded our office. I chose the new space because it provided the opportunity to expand the studio and create something more suited to our video-centric workflow and the emerging live broadcasting needs of our clients. I viewed the new studio as an opportunity to provide a more economical alternative for clients to produce live broadcasts. Instead of producing at the client site with the cost of crew travel, equipment transport, setup and breakdown, we would produce in a studio where many of the common challenges were already solved. By sending the instructor to our studio, the client would reduce production costs and improve the quality of the finished product. Now that you have some background, let me recap our requirements of the new studio design. As I review these requirements, I'll show you our design model. The images I will show you were created in SketchUp, which is a free 3D modeling tool. The model was super helpful for my team and I to work through the design without endless trial and error. Okay, so let's get started. I wanted to increase space to allow up to 15 people to be comfortable in the studio. It was really important to isolate the outside sounds like traffic, rain, and storms. To stay cool, the AC needed to stay on. Therefore, we needed to dampen air conditioning sounds to allow the use of the AC during production to keep the presenter and studio audience comfortable. Finally, we needed to keep the floor clear of cables and other trip hazards to make the studio safe for students. In addition to the requirements that resulted from specific problems, I added additional requirements based on experience and my desire to better support live video. I wanted to create a control room so that producers, directors, and clients can talk about a live production without interfering with a class or presentation. I believe that students and audience really make the difference for live training, so I wanted a studio layout that allowed us to use a small, on-camera studio audience. Communicating with the talent from outside the studio is very helpful for efficiency, so we needed to design a talkback system to allow the control room to talk to talent and the studio audience when needed. Our studio is designed for trainers, not professional talent. So I've learned that the more cameras and camera operators you put in a room, the more nervous some presenters become. I wanted to use cameras designed to be remotely operated so that production gear and personnel would not be needed in the studio. As a presenter, I know that keeping eye contact with my audience and seeing my PowerPoint or teleprompter can be tough. So I wanted the studio to have feedback monitors to allow the talent to clearly see their presentation, monitor the broadcast feed, and read feedback from remote students. We produce lots of video content for more conventional e-learning. So that usually means green screen. We needed a studio that could quickly change from green screen production to a physical set. I mentioned the gray walls of most training rooms. That would not do for our studio, so I designed a physical set that looks cool to support the presenter, but is flexible for all types of corporate content. Wow, looking back on it, I really had a lot of requirements. But to be honest, the design and building process wasn't as organized as it sounds now in retrospect. Initially, I didn't really intend to spend as much as I did, and I thought it would take about 1/3 of the actual time it took to build the space and work through the bugs. I should also admit that the tweaking and the learning never really stops. In most every production, we learn something new and think, we can save a lot of time and improve the production if we do X. Trust me, it's endless, but I love it, so that makes it worthwhile. For example, even today, I'm trying a few new tricks. I would love to take you through every detail of our setup, but we really don't have time for that. But my crew and I recorded a behind-the-scenes tour so you can get an idea of how we meet some of the key requirements I just reviewed. Okay, so let's go ahead and roll that clip. Welcome to the behind-the-scenes SkillQ studio tour. I'm going to start today in our control room area. So this is really the nerve center whenever we're doing production. This table contains our live switcher. We use a TriCaster, so that's what you see here. We also have the control for our Panasonic PTZ or robotic cameras that are in the studio. From this one box, we can control 4 different cameras inside of our studio. So that really allows us to not have production personnel in the room. Now, we also need to accommodate multiple channels of audio. So we have an audio mixer, so we can actually handle 3 or 4 different channels of audio if we have multiple presenters, or we also need to handle the audio requirements for a live studio audience. So that's all handled from over here. Now, this workstation over here is used actually as our host computer. So when we're doing a webinar or doing a web conference, this will be the machine that's actually sending that video stream to the webinar or the web conference. Now, the rest of this area is really used for production. So we often have clients in this area, or we also use it for post-production after the event. So let me move over to what I call the reception area, or you might even consider it kind of a green room. Now, this entire studio was designed to be as flexible as possible. So this is really kind of a multi-use area. You can see we've got a couch and a conference table. Now, the conference table is used very frequently for students when we have a live studio audience. It's also used for moderators. So moderators may sit at this table during a production and provide answers in the Q&A or respond to our students in chat. So very helpful to have this space. We use it for a lot of different reasons. Now, we have a variety of monitors throughout this area, so we can actually send what's going on inside the studio to these monitors. So for example, if a moderator was sitting at this table, they might see on this monitor or on this monitor the actual live broadcast. They could also see what's actually going on inside the room. So it really just kind of depends on the event and what the requirements are for that event. So let me move on to the actual studio. I think that's the area of most interest for folks watching this. Okay, here we are in the outside part of the studio where we have equipment storage and an area for viewing video. But let's get into the main event here in the main part of the studio. So this is the studio that you've seen me broadcast from throughout this presentation. Now, we use this desk, or this kind of high-top desk, for this particular style of presentation, but we can configure this room in a lot of different ways depending on whatever we need. We've actually done talk show formats that use couches and chairs, but this is one of our favorite configurations, just using this high-top desk. Now, this is kind of our stage area for the presenter. So we have this monitor, which is really just for background graphics, but we also have this monitor, which could be for the PowerPoint that's viewed by a live studio audience. So very often this monitor appears on camera, so we really want to have in this monitor any content that's going to be relevant to the session. So, of course, from this position, the lighting is arranged to be optimized for the presenter. And above my head is a shotgun microphone. So we'll use either a shotgun or a lav microphone depending on what the needs of the presentation is. Now, I'll point out one other thing while I'm here. This robotic camera that's above my head, now normally you wouldn't see this, it's outside of the shot, but this camera is what captures our audience. So this camera is directed from the control room, and we have the ability, using an iPad application, to direct the camera to anyone in our audience very quickly. So if someone asks a question, we can immediately zoom in on that person to make sure that we get their question, and we also we see them ask that question. Speaking of which, this is a configuration for a small studio audience of about 8 people. This can be expanded, but this 8 people is, I think, a good number for this studio and for a lot of our applications. So let me move from the audience area to what I call our monitor tree. So this has some important components. The top monitor is really the monitor for what's going on in the studio. As you can see, I run my hand past it. This is really what's being broadcast out. This monitor can be anything we want it to be. It could be PowerPoint, it can be a teleprompter, and it's whatever really the presenter needs to do their presentation is what will appear here. Now, the monitor on the bottom is typically used for feedback. So if we had feedback from a moderator, a lot of times this feedback or any information we need to get back to the presenter could be sent through this monitor. It could also be sent through an ear prompter, depending on the circumstances. Now, one thing I'll also point out here is that this is our main camera for production. So this camera is in this position because we really want the eyes of the presenter to be here, which will also make it appear as if they are looking directly into the eyes of their audience. So the most important thing is that really that the presenter stay focused on their audience and not looking off camera or somewhere else in the room. Now that changes a little bit when we have a live studio audience, because the expectation is that they're going to be interacting with this live studio audience and interacting with folks who are remote. So it's really kind of when we do those types of presentations, the instructor will often look at the audience most of the time here in the room, but then also direct their gaze to that camera whenever they're directing their comments to the folks in the remote audience. So there's another camera on this side of the room. This camera usually covers different angles and shots in the room. So you'll see that throughout my presentation. Whenever you see the monitor, it's coming from this camera. Whenever you're seeing just me, it's usually coming from that main camera. Now we have other camera positions in the room over here in the corner, and of course I've already directed you to the camera we have above the presenter, which allows us to get the audience shots. So while I'm over here, let me point out one other feature of this room, and that really is the wall treatment. So when we first moved in here, the walls, it's just gray walls. And we quickly realized that we needed a better, more attractive setup. So this is faux brick, not real, and this was really designed and set up specifically for use here in the studio. So doesn't look terribly real if I'm touching it, but on camera it looks pretty good. Also in this corner of the room, we have our chromat curtain. So this curtain can be moved to any position in the room, and this curtain, even though it looks like just regular flat gray material, is actually a reflective surface. So when we direct a green light on it, it becomes a green screen. So we use this very frequently when we're doing productions where we need to key a person onto a different background. Okay, so a couple more things. I want to have you look up a little bit here, so hopefully we don't have too much glare. But the idea here is that we have lights in the room which are for specific purposes. And so some are designed for the presenter, and others are designed for the students. So, for example, this bank of lights here is directed to the audience, so we have good lighting on the audience for those types of audience shots. Many of the other lights are either key lights or fill lights for the presenter, but generally speaking, we have lighting which is soft and even throughout most of the room. So that way the presenter can move around the room and still be in good light. Okay, one last thing. You'll see here in the back we also used a particular type of sound curtain. So these curtains actually prevent sound from bouncing around the room. So we've had to do quite a lot of sound treatment in this room. When we moved in, it was just an open ceiling. So when it would rain, then we would get a lot of noise from the rain. So we have sprayed-in foam and additional insulation, and then this acoustic tile. That keeps the sound out. These curtains actually keep the sound from bouncing around inside the room. So I hope that gives you an overview of what we have here in our facility. Of course, if you find yourself on the Gulf Coast, please stop by. I'd be happy to give you a tour in person. All right, I hope the tour gave you a few ideas about your own recording environment. It's been a fun and interesting challenge to create a training studio design that works for our needs as an e-learning development company. Along the way, I sought advice from many sources, and it was all helpful. But the challenging part is that most companies that deal with studios and production are more accustomed to building larger sound stages and network broadcast facilities. That means the budget ranges they're accustomed to working with are in a different universe, a much larger universe than training departments. I think we're almost out of time, so let's wrap up. There's a lot more to discuss, but I'll have to save that for a future session. Hopefully the information I shared in this session will stimulate your thinking about how you can use live video to extend the quality and reach of instructor-led training. I hope it will also get you thinking about how you can use it to enhance your asynchronous e-learning projects. Remember that the energy and engagement you generate during the live training broadcast will live on when the course you produce is used on demand. After the production, you can use your skills with Captivate or Storyline to add additional interactivity and assessment to the on-demand version. I found that the speed and efficiency of producing live courses exceeds what can be achieved with fully scripted e-learning. This is particularly true for courses that are currently being delivered as instructor-led, but might be better delivered on demand.